Welcome to Rising Faith, a podcast for students dedicated to providing honest answers to genuine questions. I'm Aubrey Lofton, and I'm here with...
Maddox Gilmore.
And Chris Justice.
Yes, it's good to be back, guys. How are y'all?
Doing good. How you doing?
Good, good. The bunions are well.
Good.
Thank
so
you,
the
Chris.
appointment went well?
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that to the entire world. Speaking of bunions, what are things in today's world that would send someone from biblical time, way back when, into shock? What would make them in disbelief, flabbergasted if they saw? For example, like, I think if they went to like a heavy metal rock concert, like Skillet or something, they would like flip out, all the lights and everything.
Yeah, and I think they would. I think a helicopter. You know, if they seen the helicopter come down flying low, woo, 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 I think that they would kind of freak out, not knowing if it was some kind of creature or what.
I think it would be virtual reality because, I mean, that's just like scary. If you really think about it, like that's just something they never saw before. So
Right. The little like block music game where it's all coming at them.
they'd be flabbergasted.
Star Wars.
If you think about it, we've come so far that almost everything probably. I mean, this
Right.
tablet right here. You know,
Literally.
seeing people on there watching videos, all that. I mean, it'd probably be pretty wild.
Atlanta traffic.
Yeah, right.
Them 6 lanes ain't no joke.
Ain't no joke.
Ain't no joke.
So all those things that we mentioned, helicopters, virtual reality, even Atlanta traffic, the roads, the cars, man created all of that. We all like put our brains together and figured out a way to develop these new things, right?
Yeah.
But how did we get here, right? Where did we come from?
Well, that's a very good question. And, you know, there are so many worldviews out there now that try to provide an answer for it. And I think some of them are just like crazy ridiculous. Like secularism, any kind of secularism, they believe that humans are at the center of everything. And they believe in evolution, right? That's something the kids are still taught in schools to an extent. They're believing in evolution. But what I want you to know about evolution is the fossil record just doesn't support it. Right, because what evolution says is there were these small changes, you know, that happened over time, and we came from birds or, you know, this soup in the middle of the ocean, and they say that we all came from that, but the fossil record just don't support it. You know, you would think that over this time that they say it elapsed that you would be able to see some of these, and it don't. So now they're changing a little bit from straight Darwinism to this idea of neo-Darwinism, to where they think these big changes happened all at one time, but we still have no fossil record to support that either.
Right. And like if you look at like volcano eruptions, when that happens, it completely changes the earth in a matter of minutes.
Yeah. Mount St. Helens, when it erupted, you know, it gave us geological patterns and formations that they had said before that it would take millions of years to make. But the amount of water that moved across there at that time, and the amount of lava that moved across there at that time, done that, what they said would take millions of years, in 10 minutes, to your point.
And I just think of atheism, or this new movement they have going on, new atheism. They just think everything is like scientific. So, you know, they talk about the Big Bang, and the Big Bang basically created everything we know, everything we see. So that's one thing I think about.
Yeah, and the craziest maybe of all these worldviews is this new postmodern worldview that they have. And what this worldview says is that nothing can really be known. Nothing can really be absolute. Like, where do we come from? Well, you can't really know that, and I believe that that's kind of crazy. They say, this is the funniest thing about postmodernism. They say that everything is a social construct. Right? They say that everything is basically a figment of your imagination, whatever society deems it to be. But the thing about a social construct, it's like an onion. As you peel back the layers and try to dig a little bit deeper, okay, well, if that's true, let's peel that layer back and look deeper. Well, it's like an onion, because as you peel all the layers back and you get to the bottom and you're done peeling the layers, there's nothing left. And that's kind of what postmodernism's like.
Right.
So what about the Christian worldview, though?
Exactly, right? The big C, little c. We made all the roads and cars and virtual reality, but God made us. He's the big creator, right? In Genesis 1, all the way back in the beginning of time, God made land, light, sea, wildlife, all that. And he said it was good.
Yeah.
But then he made man, and he said it was very good.
Yeah, I think that's good. The Bible does tell us, it tells us that God is the creator of everything, his spoken word, right? And he don't have to have anything to create everything.
We were dust.
We were dust, and he created everything with his spoken word. That's why he's the big C creator. And we take everything that he gave us, the building blocks that he gave us, and we take that and we can create new things. And that's just so awesome.
Yeah, and it was so good. He just wanted to rest on the seventh day too. He just wanted to chill out.
Right. So that goes into our identity, right? God created us. So who are we, right? Genesis 1:27 says that God made us in his image.
Yeah, so we're image bearers of God. So, because of the fall, that image was distorted. So now we're seeking, to be restored and reconciled to God. But we were created in his image. We were created with all of his communicable attributes: the faith, the love, the kindness, the creativity, all of those things. We were made, and we can find our identity in that Imago Dei, as it's called.
Right. And so our purpose, I feel like there's a before the fall and an after the fall answer. Before the fall in Genesis 1, he says that he put man in the Garden of Eden to work and to keep it, to maintain the earth and all the wildlife. And then after we disobeyed God, right, the fall happened. And so in Genesis 3, even though we disobeyed him, he still protected and provided for us, right? He gave Adam and Eve garments, and then he sent them away from the Garden of Eden so that they would never eat of the tree of life. He put angels there to guard it so he couldn't get back into the garden, because he wanted us to be with him in heaven one day. He wanted us to have that relationship with him.
Yeah. That's one thing about the Lord, man. He's always faithful. He's always faithful, and he's always true, and he never lies. And I just really think that by him doing that, it's just a really good thing, because he could have just left us. He could have just left us and just left us to fend for ourselves, but he just remained faithful and remained to love us even when we didn't love him at some points. So
yeah, we serve an awesome God who's so sovereign and so powerful that his covenant to us isn't based on our faithfulness, which is an awesome thing, because he can take even people who are so disobedient and unfaithful like us and still fulfill his promises, and his will is always going to come to pass. He's so sovereign that his will is going to come to pass with or without us, right? So I just believe it's a beautiful thing that even in our disobedience and our unfaithfulness, God's will can still come to pass. And what I want to do is I want to contrast this with some of the other popular worldviews, right? Because I believe that some of these worldviews are just crazy, but if we think about it, we would think that our kids are not susceptible to fall into these. But if we pay attention to the world around us, we see that they are. And some of these worldviews say that we don't really have a purpose. Secularists and secular humanists say we don't have a purpose. I said humanists. Did y'all hear that?
words are hard.
Humanists. Words are hard. But they believe there's no spirituality. And ultimately, listen to this. This is what they believe. They believe that because our minds are basically just like robots or computers, they believe that one day computers are going to overtake us for what is prime reality. It's called transhumanism. And what they believe with the transhumanism is we're ultimately going to reach this post-human state to where all of the problems of the world are going to be solved by computers, because they're going to surpass us in understanding. And that is what secularists believe, especially secular humanists. They believe this thing, and they're inundating our kids with that. And the next thing is postmodernism. They just say that we are not absolutely anything. Right? Does that make sense? We are not absolutely anything, which means we have absolutely no purpose, no identity, no reason for being, because we're not absolutely anything. We could be everything. We could be nothing. And I believe it's crazy, but these are real life things that they're trying to put on our kids. I would say probably the number one predominant worldview that our kids are beginning to adopt is postmodernism. And that's the belief that you live your truth, I live mine, because there's no objective truth, right? Everybody's truth is just a social construct, something that is determined by their experiences or their culture or their society, and ultimately, whatever is the most good for the most people. And I believe it was Chris. He's over here. He don't have a mic, but he was telling me the other day about a situation that happened, a tragic situation. And when it was brought to some of our legislators, they're like, oh, but that was just a few cases, or that was just a few people. And that's just showing this postmodern worldview saying, well, as long as it don't affect the majority of the people, right, then we can adopt it because it's whatever is best for the ultimate number of people. And I just think that this is crazy and something that we have to protect our kids against.
Right, and I wonder if that has some factors in the way our mental health is nowadays. If you have all these kids thinking they're living without a purpose, you know?
Yeah, and then we try to find our purpose. I mean, think about it, the things that kids try to find their purpose in, right? We have people try to find their purpose in relationships that aren't healthy. They try to find their purpose by easing their mind and being at one kind of this new age spirituality thing with drugs and different things like that. I mean, and it's crazy. And I think that's if you don't have a purpose, then you're susceptible to anything. What's that? There's an old song that says, you've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything, right? If you have no purpose, you're just kind of blowing in the wind.
Right.
I think of, y'all ever watch that movie, The Matrix?
Yeah.
Yes.
Secular humanist. That's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of that movie, The Matrix.
That one old movie, The
Yeah.
Matrix.
It's like 1999 or something.
It's so old.
Yeah, and
Old
that's what they believe. They believe that we're going to get to this state of post-humanism.
It's just a bunch of sci-fi movies.
It is. And you want to talking about that, well, if you get to the new age spirituality, what they believe is like this force like on Star Wars. You know, they believe that there's this force and this karma and that God is this thing that's all around us.
Manifestation and
Yeah.
coincidences.
So be careful. We're not, the reason why we're sharing these things is because if you don't examine some things closely, you don't understand the ridiculousness of them. Mm-hmm. So you see people and you hear these words such as karma, right? And at first glance, oh, karma, I believe in karma and all this. And you don't really understand when you unpack that, the depth of what you're saying. So people messing with stones and all these other things. Listen, if you really get into this, they say that God is basically a Jedi force. I mean, essentially, that's what they're saying.
Yeah, I have a perfect verse for that, actually. 2 Corinthians 2:14 says that the devil, Satan, masquerades as an angel of light.
Yes.
So these things might look good from the outside, but once you actually get into them and stuff like that, it's no bueno. It's not good.
It's to draw you in.
Yeah.
Yep. And that leads us to the question of morality.
How should we live, right? I think y'all speak sort of about it. I like when y'all mentioned it in the last podcast to be intentional, right?
Yeah.
Because we're here to evangelize, right? Because earth could be the closest that we get to heaven or the closest we ever get to hell, you know, depending on how you live your life. And you don't want other people to, you don't want this to be the closest they get to heaven, right? Because as followers of Christ, it's our purpose to share the gospel and to help others so that they have the opportunity to experience God's love and be with him in heaven one day.
Yeah. We only get a certain amount of, we have a limited time here on earth. So in that time, we have to use it wisely because, I mean, there's people's eternities at stake here that we need to help. We need to help these people.
So speaking of morality, before we get to God, I want to bring up some other worldviews on morality because I believe that one of the greatest philosophical evidences for a creator God who's transcendent above all else is this topic of morality. Secularists, they believe that morality is based on individuals, right? And what I said earlier, you know, whatever maximizes the good for the most amount of people, you know, and the postmodernists, you know, they believe it's very experiential, community-based, you know, whatever's best for the community, you know, whatever.
In the moment, though, whatever makes you feel best in the moment.
Yes, in the moment. That's right. It could change, right? Because there's no spiritual realm. It's all physical. Your mind, they believe that your mind is all physical. It's just these neurons. It's like computer code in your brains. They believe that we're basically these robots in a way. You know, we're bound by our physical desires, by our instincts, by these things with no higher spiritual purpose. And then this New Age spiritualism, they believe that you should be free to explore your inner truth and you should have the freedom to act in harmony with your truth. So whatever your truth is, and what you don't understand, what a lot of times, especially if you have this idea of you get to make your own truth, it's basically turns into, what do I want? I want this, so now I get to live in harmony with what I want. And that's kind of where this is going. And that's basically everybody does right in their own eyes, right? We've already seen what happens in the Bible when everybody does what's right in their own eyes. And that gets us to true morality. And all of these other worldviews, they fail, right? And every single one of them fail when something happens to them. I like to use this example. If someone goes into an alley in the middle of the night and they get beaten and robbed and have their wallet taken, all of these ideas of this subjective morality go out the window, right? And they're going to say that it's wrong. And there is an idea, there is an objective idea of what is right and what is wrong.
Right.
Right. And you could take that with almost anything. There's so many, everybody says that murdering babies is wrong. They used to. I guess they don't anymore. Right. We've redefined terms. Right. But, so we have all these ideas. And here's the question. This is like the crux of the question. If there is a moral code, then there has to be a moral code giver. Right. Where does it come from? And I believe that this idea of this morality is the biggest evidence that we do serve an intentional creator God.
And just by you saying that, it makes me think of Proverbs 14:12. And it says that there's a way that seems right to a man, but it ends in the way of death.
Yes.
So I was researching these different, like different religions and stuff like that. And like you said about New Age, I won't go too much on that because I think you covered it pretty well. But I'm going to talk on the Buddhism. And basically the core beliefs of Buddhism is that so they don't believe in any gods, actually. So I guess it's kind of closer to the postmodernism, like you were saying, but at the same time it's different because their focus, their biggest focus on just like doing work-based things and meditation and basically just what do you call it? Reaching nirvana, I guess you could say,
right.
Or reaching paradise
karma,
or whatever.
Bad karma.
Yeah, like stuff like that, and they actually do like another connection I found with all these religions is that they all talk about Jesus, but they don't see him as divine, or they don't see him as one with the Father, or like something like that. And they all see him as a teacher, just as a teacher. They don't see him uniquely like we do.
Yeah.
As a part of the Trinity.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that's important to take from that is that I don't care if it's history, right? And you're doing world history. I don't care if it's another religion. Everybody, hear me, everybody acknowledges Jesus, right? So when we do that, the first thing we have to do is acknowledge, okay, Jesus is a historical figure, right? Everybody acknowledges that. And then we go and look at the history of Jesus, and we look at his life. We look at the prophecies that are fulfilled. We look at the witnesses to his resurrection, and we look at all this because what a lot of people have to do is, or what they attempt to do is they discredit Jesus in order to support their own worldview. But I think it's very important to know that I tell you, there's no other religious figure that is acknowledged and respected by every other religion like Jesus is.
Right. So God has many attributes, right? As we talked about before, he's protective and he's loving of us. He wants a relationship with us. What else? Like, what are God's other attributes, would y'all say?
I think the first thing that we should, point out about an attribute of God is that he's transcendent. And what that means is that he operates outside of his creation. He don't need time, space, or matter to exist. Psalm 113, it says that the Lord is high above all nations, and his glory is above the heavens, who is seated on high, who looks far down on the heavens and the earth. What the psalmist is doing here, he's praising God for his transcendence. placing God in his rightful place. That's above all the nations, right? He is other than, he is above all. He's filled with authority, and he's independent of his entire creation. And like I said, he's unbound by space. He's unbound by time. Like we as people, we need time to exist within. God is the beginning and the end, right? We need this world to exist in. God doesn't. God exists outside of it, and that's why he is the only one that is capable of creating it, because if you are within the creation, you couldn't have caused the creation. So I believe that it's just awesome to think about, because tied up in all this is God's omnipresence, his omnipotence, his sovereignty. All that's tied up in his being transcendent over creation.
Yeah, I think another big characteristic is that he's very patient.
Yeah.
He's very patient with us. I remember a story when the Israelites were getting delivered out of Egypt, and they were they were in the wilderness for a little bit, and they were kind of rebellious. They were very rebellious against God, and then I also think back in Revelations where he's gonna actually he's gonna redeem the Israelites. He's gonna redeem his people that he first started with.
Yeah. God says that he held out his hand to a stiff-necked people. And I think we have to take from that God wants to be in a relationship with us, and he wants to be known by us, because God has revealed himself to us in some very major ways, right? God has had a general revelation that we see in Romans 1 to where his creation screams out to a creator. So we see this general revelation. That's Romans 1, 19 through 25. You can read about that. And then there's a specific revelation of God, right? And that we see that in John 1:14, and I want to read that for you. Let me pull it up. It says, "But as many received him, he gave them the right to become the children of God, to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory, the glories of the Father, full of grace and truth." And I think that it's just awesome that God has revealed himself to us, because when we talk about specific revelation, he's done it through the Bible, right? That was passed down, through the prophets and through the New Testament, through the apostles. So we have the Word of God, but we also have Jesus, who is the ultimate revelation of God.
I think what I resort to when I hear, like, how is Jesus the way, like the one and only way to heaven, is Luke 23, when he was being crucified on the cross, right? Criminals on either side of him. And one of the criminals, right or left, I don't know which one, he started mocking Jesus and insulting him. And he was like, "Aren't you God's son? Like, just save yourself," right? And then the other criminal on the other side of Jesus said to the criminal that was mocking him, like, "Don't you fear God, since you're getting punished the same way he is, except you actually did something worth punishing," right? Jesus didn't. Then that criminal said to Jesus, "Please remember me, like, when you go to your kingdom, Jesus." And Jesus told him, "Truly I say to you today, like, you will be with me in paradise." So all it took was that one criminal, accepting, acknowledging that he was doing wrong, and wanted Jesus to, like, save him, acknowledge that Jesus was, like, there for him, and asked Jesus for forgiveness and to go to heaven with him. And Jesus was like, "Yeah, you'll be in paradise with me."
Yeah, and Jesus alone has the authority to say that. And I believe that it's important for us to say this, okay? The culture that we live in says everything's subjective. You live your truth, I live mine. And they believe that it's offensive when people make these exclusive claims, right? But Jesus, all throughout the Bible, makes these exclusive claims over and over. Remember in Matthew 7, he says there's a path that's broad that leads to death, and then there's a narrow path that leads to life. Jesus says that. And when he says the narrow path that leads to life, he's talking about himself. We see in John 14:6, he says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." That's a manifestation of the narrow way there. And in that way, Jesus is the way. Jesus is the narrow way that leads to life, right? And that's objective. Also, the truth. In John chapter 8, Jesus says that his word is the only source of truth. And again, we know that the word became flesh and it dwelt among us. So in that way, Jesus is the truth. He is the living word. In the beginning was the word, and the word was God, and the word was with God. And then finally, we know objectively that Jesus is the life. Not a life, not one life. He is the life because God spoke and his word brought into existence everything that existed. Right? We know that. And of Christ, we heard and we've read in the Bible that for him and by him, all things were created. Right? And in him, all things hold together. We know that he's the living word. Right? The truth is the word. So we know that life was created through him and by him. So he is the life. And we also know that Christ is the Savior of sinners. Right? If God can create all things with his word, and Jesus as the word can give eternal life. And he's the only one who can, the only one who has the authority and the power to do so.
There's many times where he says this, and one of them is that he says he's the bread of life. And I remember the story of the woman at the well. He says, if you drink of this, you will never thirst again.
You'll never thirst again. See the living water.
Right.
Right. Jesus is the difference between whether or not we're going to heaven or hell. Like he is our opportunity to have a relationship with God and to, not spend eternity in hell. So speaking of heaven and hell, what happens when we die?
That's a good question.
It's a deep question.
It is a deep question. And different worldviews believe different things. You get into secular worldviews and all of these. So secular worldviews believe that you just cease to exist. Most of you cease to exist. In Hinduism, we talked about Buddhism earlier. Hinduism believes that you're reincarnated.
Right.
Right. The New Age spirituality, most of them, I'm not sure exactly what they believe, but I believe that they believe you somehow become part of that force.
Yeah, it's like you like just become like fluidity. I guess you could say you just become everything. I don't know.
Yeah, but the Bible teaches this, and this is, everybody listen to this, you must understand this. The Bible teaches that you will face the judgment. Everybody's appointed to die once, and you will face the judgment. And you're going to live in eternity somewhere, right? You're going to live in eternity either in the lake of fire that's called hell, or you're going to live in eternity in heaven with Jesus. And we're all going to live there. And I believe that is the only answer to what happens to us when we die.
Right. And I saw a video the other day, and a guy kind of explained it like this, that hell isn't bad because it's on fire and all. It's bad because we're separated from our eternal God. That one day, all of us, even after we die, we're all going to stand before Jesus and see him in all his glory. Everyone is. But those who hear, the words, "Depart from me, I never knew you," is going to be stripped from that, stripped from seeing God's glory and all that, and go straight for eternity in hell. And that's what's bad about it, not the fire and all that, but the fact that you've seen God's glory and you have to live eternity away from that, right? And God loves us all so much that he wants a relationship with us, and he gives us the opportunity to choose him.
Yeah, that's good, because we've all sinned and we fall short of the glory of God. The Bible tells us with the fall of Adam, through one man, sin entered the world, and sin caused death, and therefore we all die because we've all sinned. So we know that we've imputed the sin of Adam. And because of that, we fall short of the glory of God. And we're destined, we're on a path straight to hell. We are. But God made a way. God always makes a way for us. Right? He made a way for us in sending his son, his perfect son, who is fully God and fully man, to come down and to be dwell among us. And he was tempted in every way that we're tempted. Every single way that we're tempted. All sin can fall into a couple categories. The lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. He was tempted in all those ways, yet he did not sin. He remained holy. He was the better Adam, right? Adam came, so now he's our new representative before God, for humanity before God, and he lived perfectly. And he willingly set all that aside, set all of his glory aside, and went and died on a cross, so that if we put our faith in him, we can be reconciled to God, and then our eternity is secure. 1 John 3:15 says, "I write these things to those who believe in the name of the Son of God, that you may know that you have eternal life." Christianity is the only religion, even the other ones who claim to believe in one God, the only religion who gives you assurance of your salvation. And I want you to say, if you don't have a relationship with Jesus, right, even if you have some doubts, even if you have some things, your faith is not perfect. You can still surrender to him. You can still repent and turn from that path towards hell that you're on and turn back to Jesus. You just have to put your faith in Christ. And I know you're like, oh, I don't really have faith. I want to tell you something. There's not a religion that we talked about today, even atheism, that doesn't require faith. To believe that everything came from nothing, that everything just miraculously happened unintentionally, that requires faith. Right? To believe any of these worldviews, you have to have a measure of faith. Right? The point is this: are you going to surrender your faith to Jesus, to an ultimate, on-purpose creator God, or to dust and particles? I mean, that's up to you, but you have a faith and it's going to be put in something.
And that just goes back to him, just his faithfulness. And I like to use this analogy. Imagine being on trial, okay, and the judge is about to sentence you to a lifelong sentence, okay, and Jesus walks in the door. He says, all right, I got this, dude. And then he takes the punishment for you. And that's so amazing.
Now, can you imagine somebody saying it's hateful to tell that story? It's hateful to tell a story of someone coming in and willing to face the death that you deserve. But all you have to do is you have to surrender to that. You have to surrender to that fact that Jesus done it all. It's not something that he done so much and now you have to pick it up from there and you have to finish it. No, it is finished. Tetelestai. It is finished. He done it. You just surrender to him.
Right. The guy on the cross did it.
Yeah. So I think that's great, y'all. And what we hope to do with this, because we know, guys, we know with TikTok, we know with Facebook, you know, all the different social media streams out there, the burden of information that you have in the palm of your hand as a young person, right? Before you can even build a strong Christian spiritual foundation, you're inundated with every other worldview that is out there. And these things can start to cause you to to question and have doubts and not know what to believe. So our goal in this podcast was not only to show you in depth some of the fallacies of some of these other worldviews, because on the surface, some of them are attractive, but if you dig down deep, like I said, they're like that onion. You peel back layer and layer and layer, and eventually there's nothing left. Right? So we want to show you some of those, but then we also want to show you the better way, the only way, and that is Jesus. And we want to show you that, yes, it is an exclusive way. The only way to life is through Jesus. The only truth is God's word. And the only way to salvation, the only way to the Father and to heaven is through Christ. So I pray that if there's anybody out there listening to this podcast and you don't have a relationship with Christ, surrender to him. If you have any questions, if you need prayer, we have a link posted on our website. You can go on there, click that link, and we'll interact with you that way. But I just want to thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for coming on here. Do y'all have any last thoughts?
I got a one-liner.
All right, let's get it.
There's a cross-shaped hole in our hearts that only Jesus can fill.
Oh, I like that.
That's good. That's good.
I like that.
Yes. Well, Jesus loves you, and we love you guys. Y'all have a good one.
All right, see y'all.
Peace out.